The refusal of the American people to continue under the totally shitty leadership of this man, Donald Trump. The refusal of the American people continues. As we've said every single day, I think since this thug was put into office with the help of his Russian friends, I don't know what's going to happen today, tomorrow, the next day. We have to play it by ear. We have a liar in the White House who cannot stop himself from lying. It's just part of his nature. He's a criminal and a thug. And Timothy Egan, writing at New York Times the other day, pointed this out. He said, "We are at the precipice." The precipice. What Timothy Egan calls the us versus him moment. And Timothy writes that the people, protected by members of the military more faithful to the Constitution they have sworn to uphold than is their commander-in-chief. And him, that's us, and him, the president, threatening to use that military against his own people. This is Tiananmen Square. This is any moment in a dictatorial or wannabe dictatorial government where the people are pausing, they're hesitating. Oh yeah, hundreds of thousands of us are in the streets. But there's this anticipatory moment that's similar to the moments right before a massive rat killing. And it's like suspended time. We're waiting. What is going to happen? Well, as Egan writes, we already know who's going to go over the edge. Trump has no more understanding of the document, the Constitution that enshrines the right to peacefully assemble and protest. He doesn't have any more knowledge of that than he does of the Bible he held upside down last Monday, one of the darkest days in American history. Jesus Christ, have you looked at that picture again, that little piece of video where he struts out like some castrated rooster and stands in front of the marquee of that church holding about as awkwardly as I've ever seen anyone hold anything? And he's holding the Bible upside down, right side up, this way, that way, with a blank look on his face. That is one of the scariest moments I think I've ever seen in American history, recent American history. Anyway, as Timothy Egan writes, if the election were held today, we'd throw him out. But this moment will pass. And too many people will forget what this son of a bitch is all about. Or too many of us will get distracted as we continue to amuse ourselves to death, as Pink Floyd wrote. Amuse ourselves to death. You'd think an impeached, an insane and terrified president like Trump, who sits at the top of a pandemic that he could have had a powerful influence in negating, offsetting, but instead a pandemic that's killed more than 110,000 people in America, left 40 million of us out of work. You'd think that that kind of a scum sucker would be a lock to lose in November. But don't fool yourself. We've talked about this before, and Timothy Egan's talking about it now. It's not going to be easy to remove this son of a bitch. And as nice as it was to hear Joe Biden sound like a president this past week, it's going to take a heavy, hard, and persistent pounding of Trump to get his ass out of office. And for that, Democrats can learn from the people who know his people best. And that says those people are the never Trumpers, the never Trump Republicans. This is how the latest salvo from one such group, the Lincoln Project, this is what they said, quote, Washington transformed into a war zone for this coward. This is a time for choosing America or Trump. Okay, so the ad is blunt. It's brutally effective. And it's the best way to beat a son of a bitch, a bully who hides in his bunker in the basement of the White House. Timothy Egan insists that Trump is on the ropes. He's always been unpopular, but this spring he's testing the lows of his presidency. That wall he promised, it's finally going up. Around the White House. He tweets, law and order, and then dangles pardons for criminal cronies of his, buddies of his. Can you imagine 4 more years like the last 4 weeks? No, I can't either. Democrats, Egan writes, may be tempted to stay high while Trump finds new ways to go low. Remember what Michelle Obama said. When they go low, we go high. Okay. But sometimes when you're dealing with a sick fuck like this, if you go high while they go low, nothing is accomplished. Except the bastard going low builds up his base. There's something about the American public that guarantees that would happen. This week, Biden sounded the kind of historically resonant notes that we want from a leader, Timothy writes. He showed empathy, clarity of vision, appeals to our better angels on top of the most progressive policy agenda of any Democratic nominee since Franklin Roosevelt. How about that? Joe Biden, moderate, centrist, maybe even center-right Democrat, is now touting the most progressive policy agenda since Roosevelt. That has got to be seen as good news. And Trump's filthy little fucking son, Donald Trump Jr., on the other hand, posted a meme on his Instagram suggesting that Biden was a pedophile. This is how sick these fuckers are. Donald Trump Jr., who has probably masturbated with pictures of his sister in front of him since he's been 12. This is a fucked up family. And the Trump re-election campaign has bought Facebook ads implying that Biden is senile and demented. And you know what's coming at some point? And Timothy Egan brings this up. And this is how sick these filthy pigs are that make up Trump's filthy offspring and Trump himself. At some point, they're going to say that Biden is responsible for the car accident that killed Biden's wife and child. It's coming. You know it's coming because there's no bottom to this filth. So, as I've said before, as so many people have said before, and Timothy Egan says now, nice ain't going to cut it against a gangster presidency. There's no bottom in the basement of this White House. And nobody knows that better than the Republicans who are still alive and kicking, but who refuse to follow a tyrant. Consider that video that came out a couple of weeks ago, Morning in America, a play on words of Reagan's Morning in America. Here's an ad from the Lincoln Project. The Lincoln Project, by the way, is a political action committee of prominent Republicans whose leaders include George Conway, the husband of Kellyanne, the presidential advisor, and Steve Schmidt. You've seen him on television, former strategist for John McCain and George W. Bush. Anyway, in that video, over dystopian images of body bags, shuttered stores, and the fog of despair, a somber narrator says, quote, "Under the leadership of Donald Trump, our country is weaker and sicker and poorer." And when that ad ran on Fox News, Trump went fucking ballistic, remember? Which was exactly the response that the Lincoln Project was trying to get from the ape. Now, on the left side of the political equation, lovers of civility and nuance, and oh, aren't there millions of us? We may be appalled by this kind of whack to the head, right? Democrats, as Timothy Egan points out, being Democrats, will fight over policy identity and no small number of nonsensical slights. Republicans will chant, "Lock her up," until a majority is convinced that their opponent is a criminal. Egan says that's not to say the Democrats should mimic the say-anything Republicans. Let's hope that the mob rule cohort gets buried with Trump in November. But the best way to win is to make the election a referendum on Trump and his legacy of American carnage. Remember that? Remember that phrase? American carnage stops right here, right now. No, you fucking ape, it only began with your words. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to The Ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.